This conference will now be recorded.
Time being 4:46.
Yep.
Okay.
It should be red.
Can you hear me now? Okay. The time being 4:46, I'd like to call this meeting of October 5th, 2023 to order. We'll now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have the minutes of a lot. 8:17.
Which ones are you doing?
8:17.
Yeah, well. Yeah, well.
On page 3 of 6, under land use web presentation, I suppose maybe, never mind. I just had a issue with it. Noted the demonstration was scheduled because there were questions from the board of items missing, and if you looked at it, well, what demonstration? But I guess in the previous bold, you would say that it was a web presentation. I'm good with that. Anybody have any additions, concerns? Make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, we have one abstention. Motion passes. I had the minutes of August 31st.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of August 31st as written.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? None? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 I'm going to decline to vote,
Okay,
which isn't an abstention. I'm just not going to vote.
okay. September 7th. I have one suggestion, and it's not a complaint, and there's no need to redo this, but in the future, when we're looking at a subject and we're in the paragraph where, for instance, you, Selectman Ruggles voiced his concern that we are a customer and we have uh, a way that we'd like it built, and then it goes on, and then that we wanted the road, so it would be everything. And it goes on to say she also mentioned, when you start out and say Selectman Constantino or Selectman Ruggles or Leanne, or in the paragraph continues and it should be that person, because you don't really know who is actually speaking.
So just for clarification,
So look on page 1, just for clarification, where it starts, Leanne reported some larger permits. And then the second sentence, she noted the complaints in she tracks. And then the next sentence, Leanne noted.
Yeah.
And then the next sentence, she reviewed.
Yeah.
So it should be Leanne reviewed properly, because this is our history. It's not a negative. It's just that I'm just one person asking that this be done. So
Oh, I agree.
I think we have way too much in here already
Clarifies.
right now. But that's, again,
with you
just
on that.
one person.
I'm with you on that. But if you're
Don't
going to,
need all of this, the talk thing. We really don't.
less is more. I agree.
Brevity, I mean,
Right.
if you can't, gotta go on and on. Some of these minutes it's mind-boggling.
Mhm.
It's almost verbatim court transcript.
I agree with less is more, but if you are going to put it in, make sure that the person that's saying it, it's not she or he, it's the person.
No, it is what it is, yeah.
Right.
I have
But
no objection.
do we all agree that less is more, or?
I don't think we
No,
need to be
not
as wordy.
necessarily. Some things are important to have verbatim, some are not. But I agree with you that if you have a paragraph where you are saying the he, she, sometimes needs to be clarified who he, she is.
Mm.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of September 7th, 2023.
Second?
Uh, Accept the minutes, you said?
Yes.
Your motion said accept? Okay. A motion's been made and seconded. Discussion.
I do agree that clarity on speaker, and personally, I don't mind if they just put Ruggles in. It's fine. Doesn't have to be Selectman Ruggles to be wordy.
It's Ruggles.
Ruggles is fine.
I
Last
agree
name
with
is fine.
that. Right.
So,
I don't care if it's Selectman Ruggles. I think it's just
Yeah.
Selectman Constantino. This Constantino at least gives the person that's speaking.
it gives that definition. I
Right.
agree.
Catherine, you okay? You want more time?
Oh, no, I'm good. I moved on to the next set.
Oh, okay. All right. All those
Just,
in,
just for clarification, so do you want her to change them and this is just going forward?
forward.
Going forward, please.
Uh, For clarification, you want, so the consensus is that we want to have it clarified by name in the paragraphs.
Some sort of identifier.
Identifier, right.
Even
Okay.
if it said Joe said, there's only one
Right.
Joe here.
Well, as long as she understands that not every he, she has to have a name. If we're quoting Dawson and it's she said, but then all of a sudden if there's a he said thrown in there, then that he should have
Correct.
clarification, but
Right.
all pronouns don't have to have names.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. September 14th. This, I think, is one of the moments where what Catherine was speaking about, I hope, if I heard her correctly, that less is not more. And this is a good point where the clarity in the minutes is important because this is very thorough.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I read these before.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of Thursday, September 14th.
Ruggles second.
I do have a discussion on this though. Where it on page 3 of 4, well, it comes up a couple of times. At the top of the page, it talks about Eric Flynn answered the question right at the very top of the page. And then at that point, there was a discussion, and then Selectman Dawson made a motion to place the cease and desist. And then we seconded it, and then all of a sudden, in Eric, we don't know what Eric asked questions off microphone and was unable for listening on video. So we don't know who that Eric was. That's where I think it's important to have names.
There is a question that I asked the owner. I asked him if any time he had been given a copy of the site plan and was made aware of the requirements of that property, and he said no. And I can't find that in here, but I mean, maybe at this point it's not important.
You asked the question of what, Catherine? I didn't hear you.
When the owner was standing up, I asked him if he had, and I don't remember exactly the words I used, if he had received a copy of the site plan and was aware of the conditions of that site
Mm-hmm.
when he purchased it.
Right.
And he said, no, he had not.
Yeah, that would be important.
But I've been scanning it and I don't see it. Also on page 2 of 4, that second paragraph, Selectman Constantino asked, are there any other questions? And I asked if the change of use application had been withdrawn at the last meeting and if a new application had been filed. And I'm sorry to say I don't remember the complete answer, but it says Leanne confirmed it had.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that a change of use application had been withdrawn. What I don't know is if a new application had been filed. So I don't remember, did she confirm yes to both questions or?
No, she confirmed that the change of use application was withdrawn.
So we still don't know if, okay.
I don't believe there was a new application filed.
I didn't think so, but
Well, in the second paragraph at the very end, the last sentence, Leanne confirmed this is correct. And if it was the individual who was going to sell cars that withdrew the application, Leanne confirmed that this is correct. And this was the reason they began looking at the site plan for compliance. So those are two things that need investigation right there.
I think so.
Okay. Do you want to vote on the motion or withdraw your motion? Send it back to,
I'll withdraw my motion.
withdraw the second?
Mhm.
Okay. It's going to withdraw the motion in the second. Okay, September 21st.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of September 21st, 2023.
Second?
A motion has been made and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, so we have September 14th is the one that's going back, correct?
Yes.
Okay, next, representative from R&D will not be coming tonight due to illness. He wants to meet with the board the next time. All right,
Are we going
Finance.
to offer that same opportunity to the other paving company?
If they want to come in there, anybody is welcome to come in.
I know, but this one is specifically coming in.
I don't think we invited him.
No, but he asked immediately after we awarded the bid. So I'm just saying we should afford, I just feel like we're
Thinking
not being
about it.
equitable. I just feel we should at least offer that opportunity and let the other paving company know that is going to take place. I just think that'd be more equitable.
Well, that's definitely above board,
Yeah.
and I'm all for that.
Agreed.
Okay, next on our list is, that was a yes, that was a consensus, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to go back and clarify that. Tim, Finance Director.
Thank you. So in your binders, you're going to find my report along with a draft budget and then also the email report that you get every Thursday printed out for you. What I'd like to do with my report is start from the back page and work front because I always put the most important things up front, but I want to get some of the housekeeping out of the way first. So I am going to be working on a number of policies that need to be updated this year. And I'd like to do that through the fall when I'm meeting with you on budget, tax rate setting, and other items. So, and the first one is going to be the fund balance policy. So I will send that out to you, and you can review it at your leisure. And at one of these meetings, we can sit down and discuss it in earnest. The second thing is regarding the Primex cybersecurity audit that we undertook about a month ago. And there was a recommendation in there to get a .gov domain. So these are only available to verified government entities. So you can't have a misspelling of a town name and make it look like it's a legit town, because anything with .gov has to go through a pretty rigorous verification process. So back when they first opened this up, I applied for it in 21. And I think when the program was new, there was a lot of things that just didn't get followed up on or completed, and we never got anything back from them, and it just got put on the back burner. So this came up again, and when I sent the letter off a second time, because there's no cost to this, whatsoever, but they had certain requirements that the letter had to have in it, one of which was it needed to be signed by Patricia Constantino specifically. So what,
As chairman?
as chairman,
Okay.
as the highest elected official of the town, is what they said in their letter. So this is one of these bureaucratic organizations that they tell you what they want to see, and you form the letter the way they want to see it. And it was by and large what they originally wanted back in 21. It should have sufficed in 21, but this time out, they had other requirements. That was one of them. So without objection, I will draft the letter and ask Chair Constantino to sign that so we can send it off. Again, there's no cost to it. The only cost that we would have is if we decide to change everything over, all our email addresses, all of our business cards, letterhead, everything else to .gov. So there's no more Tilton NHPD, there's no Tilton NH, it's just all tiltonnh.gov. So that would incur some costs, but there's also grants available to offset those costs. And I don't think they would be extraordinary costs. More, I mean, they wouldn't be consequential or material in my view, but you'd still have some costs associated with that. But the first step is just to get the domain so that we have it. The next thing is I was asked to work on the Samberton prosecutorial agreement. And so I did some work on that. That's on the back page. You can see that our costs since the original agreement in 2017, our total costs for our prosecutor were $86,000 in 2017. And you can see the progression through the years and what our projection is for 2024. And at the time, the share for Samberton was $12,500. Now, if you were to look at the revenue line in our budget, it's higher than that because we also get other types of revenue associated with the prosecutor. But in any case, that represented just under 14.5% shared cost of our costs. And as you could see over the years, as their contribution has stayed static and our costs have risen, that percentage has gone down over time. So I worked with Chief Hankard, and he indicated that their activity has actually been down, that their arrests and cases are fewer than in those early years. And that could be due to staffing, could be other reasons, but in any event, there hasn't been a corresponding increase in activity, according to him, and I hope to get some data from the PD that would also support that. But in any event, the arriving at a rate of $18,000 for 24 would put us at just under 13.5%. So much closer to our original cost share, and what I felt was representative of the activity, as well as the fact that it's got to be something that he can get his board to swallow on their end. That's not too dramatic of an increase. So we discussed a number of different rates. I started higher, of course, as you might imagine, and I think there's also some room in the agreement itself to have some language in there about renegotiating based on cost structure. So in any event, what I'm looking for is agreement on whether that you feel as though that's a reasonable figure to charge them for their service, for our services. And if so, I can let him know that he can proceed forward with his board and try to get that approved. And at the same time, working out the using the base agreement and modifying it slightly, for what I just mentioned.
Would?
Yes.
Tim, how did you arrive at the town costs?
Those are salary and fully loaded costs. So that's fully loaded costs for that position.
Why don't we just bill Samberton on a case-by-case basis?
Well, I think we'd bill less.
Well, if they're not actually using the service.
This is a whole year. This is
over the course of a year.
This
right.
is our cost for Tilton, correct?
Right. So you see under town costs, that's what our attorney prosecutor costs, fully loaded.
Right.
The Samberton costs, that that is what I'm proposing is their share, $18,000. And I would
Of
say,
that,
what's that?
of that town cost,
Right.
not in addition to.
No, of that.
Okay.
Right. So in other words, it represents 13.45%. So Joe, what I would say is that
Okay, I get it.
we have to have the person in place.
Mhm.
So we don't have the luxury of, gee, all of a sudden they get 10 cases and we're kind of behind the 8 ball.
Right.
So we're setting a standard and sort of meeting what the practice has been over the years. It's just that we're updating it to reflect the fact that, our costs are higher and their share should be, proportionate to that.
Right. Makes sense now. I didn't understand the cost where you were arriving at that
Right.
town cost. Makes
Okay.
sense now.
So is that consensus with the board?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Tim.
On the first page, I'll just take the middle one first since that's also housekeeping. You'll see the audit should be available soon, and that'll be in the Selectmen's office if you care to come in and peruse it or flag it. 40 different Post-its, Catherine.
I have a new supply.
Oh boy. All right, I'll buckle up. So the first thing I want to talk about is related to that. So the tax rate setting and end of year. So the MS 535 is essentially our audit in DRA's form, and it's in your to be signed folder. And hopefully the 4 of you have signed that tonight so that we can send that up. DRA is still reviewing it. So if there is a small adjustment, usually it's moved something from one category to another. If there is anything, I'll need to bring it back for your signatures at your next meeting. But otherwise, that is required for our tax rate setting. And it also reflects in there that last year we returned $400,000 to the taxpayers, and we ended up with a fund balance of $1,161,817 as of the end of 22. So if you recall, at the time I was somewhat nervous going into the end of the year because how much money we were going to use and whether we would still have enough. We made it by about $30,000 is what we ended up. That's to me that's a sliver. Looking at how we ended up for the year. So I feel pretty good that that was a good estimate, and we had good visibility on the end of year. I feel like this year we're in a similar boat. So right now, our expense budget is down about or under expended by about $316,000 as of the end of September. And our revenues projected we're going to come in about $34,000 over budget for the year. So if those revenues hold, we'll have about $350,000 considering our September expense snapshot and our end of year revenue. And depending upon how the departments spend through the end of the year, if all of a sudden we've hired, 8 people, we will not be adding to that 350,000. But if we're kind of chugging along the way we have been with some hires here and there, it's possible that we could have somewhere between 350 and 450,000 available for encumbrances and tax rate relief at the end of the year. So now, unfortunately, we don't have until the end of the year to make that decision. That decision is going to have to be made this month. So I'm really trying to pin down the department heads as to what's likely to be an encumbrance or a need this year, and then apprise you hopefully at your next meeting of those items. And there are a lot of good ones on that list, and some of which we'll be discussing in the budget portion, because some of these things are loaded in the 24 budget and some are not. So in October we will be setting the rate, and I don't know if it's going to be ready for your next meeting, but and it may require a special meeting. We'll just have to see. As you can see in the to be signed folder, we're having to start to borrow. And so we will probably borrow at least one more time, maybe 2 more times, depending upon when the tax bills are are ready to go out. It just depends. I can tell you though that year to date, we're really upside down in terms of interest. We've managed our cash very well. We've spent less than $20,000 in interest expense, and we will have made almost $55,000 by the end of the year in interest in our accounts. So that doesn't happen very often, and I wouldn't expect that to go on for a period of time, but at least it's one good thing this year. So having said that, moving on to the 2024 budget. So you have a copy of the draft in your binders, and this is a very, 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 very draft budget. And I'm going to go through the caveats of why it's very draft. First of all, things have been very fast and furious around here in the last few weeks. So not to provide myself with a convenient excuse, but I'll take it nonetheless. And so you'll see a number of narrative lines need to be updated. Some of them will say that, awaiting prices. You may find other things say principal and interest. I haven't updated that for 24. So the actual amounts that are in the budget are correct, but the narrative that says how much is principal and interest, that needs to be updated. I don't have the new rates for tax anticipation note for next year. And I hope that if it benefits the town, we may do what we did last year, which is to try to lock in. But I do think personally that inflation for rates has peaked, that these rates are going to start to level or come down for the Fed. And if anything, I think the risk that awaits us is not so much the inflationary pressures, but more deflationary picture down the road, say, a year or two down the road. If housing starts to break, if employment starts to soften, and if energy prices fall. So, that's a big if, lots of ifs, but there's probably more risk on that side because this tightening has been so long and so persistent by the Fed. And at the same time, if you've ever read about what they do with their balance sheet and how they purchase assets from banks, and then they dissolve those assets over time, they let them fall off their balance sheet when they mature. They are changing one big portion of their balance sheet that most people don't see. You hear about the interest rates, the Fed funds rate, but you don't hear much about their balance sheet. So when money was free, they were buying all kinds of debts from banks, mortgage-backed securities, treasuries, things like that, which allowed the banks to have lots of money to be able to lend out to people. And so now they've stopped doing that. And if anything, they're going in just the opposite direction. They're shedding the stuff off of their balance sheet so that there's less money available for lending, which also keeps rates tight and high and to try to cool off the economy. So again, I personally think that we're not going to need to lock into something early this year like we did last year. So last year we locked in at 375 in about 60 days earlier than the beginning of the year. And this year we saw rates over 5% that we would have been facing if we hadn't done that. I don't think that's going to be the case for this next year, but again, it's very fluid, as you can imagine, and we just happen to be lucky. Other items that, besides the narratives and the prices that we're awaiting, janitorial costs. We're going to be getting a new contract or some kind of information on pricing for that. There's some groups, I mentioned Parks in here. Parks budget has $1,000 for janitorial costs, but in the contract, the contractor says it actually takes them $3,560 to do the riverfront park. So somewhere that has to be absorbed elsewhere. And I've managed to do that, but it really needs to be in parity, one to the other. So either Parks has got to come up or we got to figure out what type of janitorial services that they really need at a lower cost there. So there are a lot of these little fine-tuning things that have to be done. So I've already talked about the outlook somewhat. And I am going to do more in-depth outlook for you like I did last year, time permitting. But as we're looking at the budget itself, this budget is up 5.6% for the operating budget. And our revenues are up slightly, about 0.5% from the budgeted revenues for 23. So that's good. But the costs where we're really seeing the increases, there's new personnel in this budget. So there's 2 new full-time employees for the DPW for the recycling center. There's a half an admin position at the PD and a half admin position at Town Hall. There's the election cycle. We have 3 elections in 24. We had 1 in 23. So that's contributing to costs, as well as the fact that there's considerable talk about the types of machines that we may have to use or go to. It sounds as though we can still use our current, vote counting machine, but there's a lot of rumbling out there that there may be changes, or I don't think we're going to be mandated to buy something before then, but it's possible. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. There's also one-time costs in this budget. So within the DPW, for instance, there's the concrete for the salt sand shed. There's purchasing tools for DPW, which have been the director's personal tools. So this is replacing those so that the DPW actually has their own tools. And then also there's costs in his budget for sidewalk on Winter Street up to the Veterans Home.
No kidding.
Why wouldn't he have done that in our warrant that we have every year,
Which, the sidewalk?
the sidewalk?
And it is possible, right? And we've discussed that, but he wanted to show it in here. He really wants to make sure that gets done. And I said, fine. So those 3 that I just mentioned are things that we might be able to pull for encumbrances out of this year. So that plus some additional money for the baler, a small amount of money for the baler would, about $55,000 for DPW would cover the tools, the concrete, and also the sidewalk
This year.
this year. Right. So we could, those things are
And that would
encumberable
take
items.
it out of the budget and take it out of the need for putting it in the warrant article.
Right. So
Okay.
it's either that or more money could be added to the warrant article, but then, you kind of take your chance at town meeting. But he feels very strongly about this sidewalk, as you'll hear when you speak to him individually about his
I
budget.
agree with him on the sidewalk. Trust me, I do. I walk it.
It seems like the sidewalk right along West Main Street is in horrendous shape,
I
horrible shape.
yeah.
Big holes in it, and
I actually believe that I put down Winter Street, but I believe it was Winter and part of West Main Street. So I think there was some portion of it, but I wasn't certain what portion it was. And I've felt for years, it just kills me when I see people, especially students, walking
on that.
along West Main from the high school down towards Hannaford's, and they're just walking along the side of the road on that road. It's just so dangerous. But in any event, so those are the items that you'll see in Kevin's budget in DPW. A caveat about the recycling center. So in Thornton, Deb Shepard had been the town administrator there, and she cited the fact that they had 2 employees at the time running their recycling center there, and they were generating $100,000 a year in revenue off of their recycled materials.
you do it right.
If you do it right, right. And so in this revenue budget, we arrived at a conservative $40,000 to start. And the other thing to keep in mind too is, where we've had such difficulty hiring people over the years, that it wasn't this last budget, but the year before, I believe, I had worked to stagger in the police hires because it was clear that we weren't going to have the capability at the time to hire people right away. So they were sort of staggered in between January and June, I believe. So that also helps with some of the costs, but then it makes it more difficult to see how things, look down the road. When you see it staggered in, it helps the taxpayer, but it looks like a bigger number the year following. So there is that as you look at any of these items and any of these hires. There are a number of open positions in this budget that I'll go through. And so having said that, the last item there also increased IT support costs. So there's some support costs that were increased for the servers and PD support. A couple other items that could be potentially big ticket items in the PD. There's an Axon contract that has to be done for both the tasers as well as the body cameras. And the initial prices that we were getting from Axon were not reasonable, significantly higher. So the chief has been working on that and also looking at whether we need to replace everything right now. What they like to do is they like to get us on a 5-year agreement, send us all new stuff. But we had made use of our prior agreement to get new equipment while Sergeant Penault was still there. And a lot of the body cameras had been replaced at that point. But an awful lot of the cost that's associated with the body cameras is on the technology behind it. The evidence.com, which is a subscription service of Axon, it's quite expensive. And it's easy to run out of space, requires retention parameters for the different types of things that are captured on body camera. And the chief's been working on setting up and making sure that these schedules are being met so that they're clearing things out. And in particular, working with their attorney prosecutor, making sure that those other things that they've got to keep for longer periods of time, that we can save those off of evidence.com onto a more static backup within the PD and the evidence room, so that that we don't have to pay for that storage every month for those things that we might need 10 years from now, kind of thing. So anyway, he is working on that, and that is a pretty sizable project. All the costs for subscriptions and software has gone up considerably. Cellbrite looks like it's going to be a pretty big purchase this year. And, again, it's the discussion I've had with the chief is it worth it? Do we have enough, activity that we use these things for? And I'll let him speak to you about it. But I left feeling like we do have someone trained in it, and we do have people that will use it. But I also think that if we're going to do any work for another agency, that could result in one of our officers being called to testify in court because they did the extraction of data, that we have a way of recouping our costs, in a matter like that. And we did that with the polygraphs. We charge for polygraphs.
Where else can we get that service done? County sheriff?
State police. Yep.
And they charge us accordingly?
No, I don't believe so. No, they.
Wait.
It's
extends it.
right. It's
Right.
more of that, and there are other agencies that have them. So it's not like it's not out there elsewhere, but again, I'll let him review that with you and make the case for that. As you know, we've just replaced so many different things for them. We replaced all the radios, with the exception of some of the in-car radios, the older in-car radios that will have to get replaced when we replace vehicles. But the radios themselves, and then also the guns, all the guns were replaced. We're still waiting to make the final payment when we return the old guns as the trade-in. So they have a lot of new equipment available to them. The one thing I could see the chief wanting, and unfortunately I wasn't able to speak to him in more detail about it, but with the forfeiture money that we received, that can pay for about half a Tahoe. So that I would imagine if he felt the need to see another vehicle added, that might be a potential encumbrance for the balance of what that Tahoe would cost between the detail fund the forfeiture fund, and some budgetary encumbrance. Outside of that, you'll see additional costs besides the personnel in Public Works for just supplies for recycling and the operation of that building. And other than that, I have put some black marks as you go through this, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I did want to point out some things and make sure that the board is in agreement with how these are reflected in the budget. So on page 2, in the administration line, you'll see that there's a line now that says salary support staff, and that includes the hopefully soon to be filled administrative assistant position and a part-time secretary. So the cost differential here shows as $8,341, but when all the loaded costs are factored in, the delta is about $3,500 between last year and 24. So if you're good with that type of nomenclature on that, so combining those two into that line, which used to be the administrative assistant salary line, because now you have the 1.5 positions. So if you're good with that, how it's presented, we'll leave it like that. I did note on page 3 some of the awaiting pricing. Next would be, which I discussed with you in the PD budget, taking that command staff and noting that separately from the officers' wages, which are in the CBA. So if you go to page 9, at the top you see there's the salary for the chief, and then there's salaries for command staff. So the command staff includes the attorney prosecutor, the 2 sergeants, and then the open lieutenant position. So those are all non-union, along with, of course, the chief, but chief has his own line. So then PD salaries, those officers' wages, they are all in the CBA. There's 11 budgeted positions. 8 are in patrol, 1 is a detective, and then there's 1 open detective and 1 open SRO patrol. So breaking it out that way, you get a very clear picture about, some people think of, it used to say officers' wages, but it included a lot more than just the officers. It included basically everybody other than the chief and the communications staff, so the dispatchers, if you will. So when I brought this to you before, it sounded like you kind of liked the idea, but you wanted to see what it looked like. So now you get to see what it looks like. So if you don't like it, it's easy to move, put it back the way it was. But I think it more closely reflects really understanding what it takes to run the PD. How much is really patrol? How much is your command staff? And then you've got your, the support staff includes the communication supervisor, communication specialist, an admin, and another half admin, and then 1 open communication specialist position. And then at the top of each of these departments, I've put their total head count along with how many are currently filled positions and how many open positions there are. So you'll see that under each department that has significant staff or open positions. So does that seem to be to your liking, or would you prefer to see it as it was, as just all officers' wages?
I'm good.
Yeah, it works for me. Do we really need those other people in the support, communication specialists and whatever, if we don't operate in the evening?
Well, you're actually running, I think you're running, it's either 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. or 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. right now.
2 shifts,
Right,
basically.
right.
Right. And, the original request made by Chief Cormier at the time was he wanted to be able to offer extended hours so that people that had a lost wallet or wanted to get a pistol permit or something, that they could come into the PD and there was someone there to wait on them, or if they were picking up a police report or some such thing. And that was when we went from 8 hours of coverage to 16 hours originally. So it's really what, and as with anything of any of these budgets, really it amounts to the balance between services and cost. What kind of services do you want to offer the citizenry, and what kind of costs are people willing to pay for that? So if that service is valuable to people to be able to come in at midnight and pick something up, then that's part of that cost.
I'll ask the chief about it when he comes in.
Right.
Yeah,
What
It's
kind
also-
of things actually happen like that? But I understand, 5 o'clock and the police station's closed. You can't find anybody if you go inside. That seems, I don't know.
Well, and
isn't it somewhat that the communication between the vehicles in the data going to the cruisers, and also
Mhm.
what's redundant, and then they have to come back in and type it all.
Well,
as well.
so we don't have to do that as much anymore because we have IMC Mobile.
But if you went to Belknap, you would have to, because they don't have the same communication as we do here as a communication specialist dispatch.
Right. So
IMC
if they so that still happens overnight. If they take if Belknap gets a call
Right.
and dispatches, and then every day we get a log of those. And it used to be that the dispatcher would have to key those into the system in the morning when they came in. But again, and one of the things that you have to keep in mind that seems like it is going to become a reality is that Belknap County apparently is set to receive a massive amount of money to be able to extend to all their member towns access to these IMC and IMC Mobile, and essentially have we would have our own copy of our data, but they would also be able to more centrally keep everything, and there wouldn't be any of this sort of overlap. So I think it's somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 that they're waiting to be able to do this. Now, that's been rumored for a while. It's been talked about for a while. We went ahead and did IMC Mobile anyway to try to improve our efficiencies within the department. Yeah.
Don't we pay Belknap County for
Yes.
that dispatch center?
Yes.
We do. It's part of our county taxes. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just, now that I've hooked you, why in hell are we duplicating a service we already pay for?
Well, and it's not me. So keep in mind, it's the balance of what does the board want to provide for services to the community, and what cost are you willing to accept for those services. So, and it's the value of those services. I've got an opinion, but I would leave that to the chief. I can only tell you what, and I think the majority of you heard from Chief Cormier himself when we expanded dispatch and the reasons why we expanded it. But there are many reasons to have it, and particularly there are issues of safety, there are issues of responsiveness, and of course, the data collection. But in any case, so moving right along, if you're good with that command staff change, which it sounds as though.
Hey, Jeannie.
I just had a question. Attorney prosecutor position, has that always been under command staff? It just seems like that should be an admin and not command staff, because remember when we went through this whole discussion with MRI about how you defined command staff? So if you put the attorney prosecutor in as command staff, it looks like it's more inflated than what it is.
So it could be its own line. It could certainly be its own
Technically,
line.
he's not a police officer, correct?
No, that's correct.
So
But-
putting him in with command staff seems a bit like it's stretching it.
Well, the idea originally was to delineate the union from non-union personnel, so that was the original idea. But what I would suggest then is, so you have your command staff, and then we have another line that is PD, attorney, prosecutor, and make that a separate line as well.
I would make it a separate line. I would make it a separate line because it really
Okay.
doesn't belong in a command
And
staff.
that's what
I
you'll
agree.
see in your next budget.
Andy,
Outside of that, and there's just a lot of numbers we're still waiting on. Contracts for next year, waiting for quotes. And then I'll just point out in outside agencies that we had not received anything from Community Action. So on page 11, the items that have account numbers next to them were ones that we have budgeted, that were approved last year, budgeted for, uh, and funded. And then underneath those are ones that have sent in packets this year, along with what they've requested. But we did not receive anything from Community Action Program or Franklin Visiting Nurses this year. Although Chairman Lawrence had called and talked to one of them, and I think there was some confusion about what they needed to send in. They just sent a simple letter requesting, but the process is pretty rigorous. There's 15 copies they have to provide along with their balance sheets, their all kinds of financial information along with it. So depending upon when we receive those, even though the Budget Committee may elect not to consider them since it passed the deadline, the Board of Selectmen may wish to. It's just up to you. And they're going to be setting their, and I don't want to take anything away from Selectman Dawson, who may be talking about their process, but in the next meeting or two, they're going to be setting up who's going to be coming in when, and I'll be sure that that when they do set their appointments with outside agencies to alert you so that you know if you wish to attend or watch the video after the fact that that you're aware that they came in and presented, made their case to the Budget Committee. Outside of that, I have included the estimated 2024 revenues on page 12. I don't have the estimated sewer amount, so I used the 23 just so you can see how we related our original 23 revenue budget versus the 24 revenue budget. You can see that it's up. The one concerning thing that I have in our revenues that it's kind of like some towns talk about, like the canary in the coal mine, is motor vehicle registrations. And motor vehicle registrations are starting to fall off a little bit. Not a lot, but noticeably, so that it's not a straight line up. It's starting to round at the top. And so I've actually had to estimate lower year-end revenues for motor vehicles than we originally estimated for the year. We originally estimated 880,000 of motor vehicle permit fees, and right now it looks like we'll be fortunate to hit about 829,000 of motor vehicle permit revenues. So I keep a real close eye on that, because if you think about it, if people are buying new cars and they're registering, they've got money. If that's starting to slow down a little bit, then but of course, some of the other fees have been up quite a bit, and
Could
particularly
those registration fees be due to the fact that people are registering them with the dealer more? New cars?
it could be, but we've had a very stable, even since that started, we've had a very stable increase year over year, and this is the first year where we're not going to see that increase. We're going to be pretty much flat with 21.
Interesting.
I'm sorry, 22. Which is not to say that's bad. It's just it's slower, and of course this is just all projection. December is usually a very, very big month for our motor vehicles due to birth dates. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's what I'm projecting, and it is different from prior years. Lastly, I included on page 13 the status of, now these are unaudited funds, but it shows you what's in the police detail revolving fund, the recreation revolving fund, and then all of our capital reserve funds as of September 30th. And the total of those capital reserves equals $459,493. And then it shows also our unassigned fund balance, which is an audited figure of $1,161,817. So when I do come back to you, I'll be talking with you more about the tax rate setting and year end and how I see things ending up, along with suggested encumbrances and or spending that we may do this year, and try to find the right balance of tax relief along with alleviating some of the cost items out of the 24 budget. So if there's nothing else for me, I will finish up early.
May I-
Thank you, Tim.
May I
And-
po-
oh,
may I
go
pose
ahead.
one
Go ahead,
question?
Scott.
So going back to the PD budget, if I heard correctly throughout the last couple of years, the communications folks are in the CBA as well, correct?
They are.
So just my question for the board, and not to belabor, but would it be prudent to just, whether it's in parentheses after them, put CBA in there as we're coming into a negotiating period, just so that it's delineated?
In the budget?
Yeah. Just,
So the only, oh, sorry.
No,
Yep.
because Pat was.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, because when we look at PD salaries, officer wages, it says in parentheses, it's got CBA after it.
Yeah.
So, but when you go down to the communication specialists and communication supervisor, there's no delineation of CBA in there. I'm just thinking that when people from outside look at it, or even if the budget committee, that they're going to understand that when their CBA comes up,
Right.
but that's mandated by the CBA.
So in that line, in the PD, in the communications line, for those salaries, it includes both CBA and non-CBA personnel.
Okay.
So there are 3 full-time members that are CBA, and then there's the 1.5 positions that are admin.
Correct.
So so by adding that, the attorney prosecutor line, you could have a PD administrative salary line as well, and that would then completely delineate. So you'd have your 2 CBA lines, and then you'd have your non-CBA lines. And that's easy enough to do.
Sweet.
That work for everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I will make those changes. And next budget you see, hopefully they'll be properly reflected. So,
Thank you.
great.
Outstanding. Thank
Anything
you
else
very
for me?
much.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great, you're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, next on our list is Tilton Northfield Fire Department Commissioner Tim Sattler. Just you?
Just me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought the whole gang was coming.
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Want 'em sitting
You're
up
going to
there?
need the mic.
You can sit up here if you'd like. It's a little bit more cozy, or you can be up there and
We have a chair.
you can just pull a chair up. It's right there.
Well, there's one on wheels.
One right. Yeah, I was gonna say there's one right there.
It's all set, ready to go.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I certainly appreciate it. Would love to give you a little bit of an update as to where the fire commissioners are at and where the building committee's at, and what's going on, and answer any questions. First, I'd like to apologize for making public the discussions that we had in regards to the property discussion. I'm not sure that we made that public at the appropriate time. And so we discussed that at the commissioners meeting. I want to apologize for that.
Thank you.
We could have done that better.
Yeah.
And at this point, we didn't know if we needed to do this in non-public, but
Not anymore. Catch out of
No.
that bag. All of them. I listened to that meeting. I was like, whoa.
so
No
again.
secrets there.
So just an update of where we're at with the building committee. The contractor Lorero has done a geotechnical study of the properties. They've done a site evaluation. They've looked at the building program and the space needs, and they've given us some estimates for site work at the 2 locations. And the committee met and came up with a recommendation that they wanted to provide to the selectmen, that the selectmen should build at the Tilton property. the commissioners had a few questions that we're still working on getting the answers from, and then we had a lengthy discussion about obviously the original call to action by the commissioners at that time was to replace the Center Street station at Park Street, and then we added the putting in the Tilton property for consideration, and then moving forward, we've come up with a discussion about the different, how do we get a plan that the taxpayers will approve? Because that's obviously the goal here. We can keep spending money and coming up with plans, but if they don't get approved, and trying to identify the different groups in town, and how do you come up with a plan that would appease all of those? And so we're still in those kind of discussions and moving forward along those lines. But what has come up repeatedly is, what is the agreement with the town of Tilton? And I don't know if you watched the meeting, you might have sensed my frustration with the committee. We have a verbal agreement. We're all set. You don't need to worry about the property there. And some of them are pushing the issue. So one of the reasons for being here today is just to confirm that we're all on the same page. And then how does that process move forward?
Mm-hmm.
Because those are some of the questions that are coming up, and I don't know how to answer those.
I believe
And
the
you might not
final
either.
response, I mean, the property's not going anywhere. It can only be used for municipal purposes. Tilton right now doesn't have any plans for the extra, except for maybe recreation. But I believe the bottom line was, we'd have to go to town meeting to say, are you willing to?
Right.
Yeah,
Because
that's a town
certain
meeting thing
promises were
for us.
made at town
But-
meeting.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that came up, was whether the town of Tilton had adopted this article in reference to, is it a binding or is it an advisory in nature, a warrant article that the town would have to put forward?
We can make the decision to sell or lease, or we've already, the RSA 31, I believe it is. Is that what you're referring to? Can the selectmen make a decision to sell property outside of the town meeting?
Yeah. I know they can.
We can make that decision. We've already adopted that years ago.
Yeah, it's 41 colon 14 dash A,
41.
41 colon
Yeah.
14.
Powers and duties.
Yeah, so that was years ago that the residents of Tilton adopted that.
Well, and I appreciate that. And being a taxpayer of Tilton, I wouldn't understand why there would be any problem putting forth a warrant article for the Tilton taxpayers, that they wouldn't be in favor of that. But the question comes up is, what happens if we design a station for that property and then the town of Tilton voters vote not to approve the warrant?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. 'Cause
Sorry.
What would happen if they put forward a plan and then the town of Tilton decided not to vote on that plan?
You mean they voted no?
They voted no, correct?
Then I guess we wouldn't be selling it.
Right.
There's a lot of contingencies involved. Are the Northfield people going to go?
I think the contingencies would be with any kind of property, unless you were able to buy that, which you're not. You're not any type of property right now, that Tilton Northfield Fire Department, unless you bought it outright. The same would happen with the couple years ago with the property with the Tilton School. Unless you were able to buy that outright and then go to town meeting and say, we have this land, you still have those contingencies that you're going to have to deal with.
Right.
Which is going to be town meeting. We have 2 town meetings, Northfield and Tilton, and well, actually a third and annual meeting at the fire department that you're going to have to deal with. But the other thing that we said we were in agreement was to swap that, and we already know what that swap is. But in the deed, you have to remember that that can be passed over to a municipality or a district, a village district, which is the fire department. But you can't sell that and to like Tanger Outlet or
Yeah.
a porn factory or something like that, there's restrictions on that deed. Well, there is. It's on our deed. We can't
Yeah,
sell it to a
yeah.
porn factory, right? I mean, so there's restrictions on that deed, on our deed,
Right.
even at the police station. There's restrictions from the church on that deed that we can't sell that specifically to for other than municipality or like a village district. So be very clear when you pass that forward that they can't resell that and make a whole lot of money and build somewhere else. You can't do that.
And would I be correct in saying that obviously the agreement with the town of Tilton would only be if the taxpayers at the district meeting approved
Yes.
the fire station?
Yes.
Obviously,
100%.
there's not going to be
Right.
any
Correct.
conveyance if
No.
both sides, if it doesn't get approved on both.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. The other thing also too is that I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, board, that we have a building that we're gonna swap, that you folks are gonna take down the building and put asphalt. We're not expecting at town meeting that when it passes, that the next week you're gonna take that building down. It's when you move in to that building that
Right.
that's when you take it down. So there's leeway there that you have some time when you move into that building, build that building, move into that building, then you take down the other building.
Yeah.
Am I right?
You-
Board clarification?
Yes,
No,
I'm
Okay.
100%.
Yes, and I think we were all understanding that.
Okay.
And
I watched the
sometimes it's-
movie, I watched the movie in the meeting, and that was a real big question. So I think that we'll put that one to bed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes, anyway, don't say anything at all.
Right.
So that would be, so just for clarification, then there'd be a warrant article on the Tilton Town Meeting, and with all those contingencies probably listed in there. And then we would have, during our district meeting, the proposal for the new station, and obviously needing both to be approved. Can I move on to some other questions?
Sure.
All right, thank you. We were wondering if the board would grant the fire district an easement to the water line. And the reason for that discussion, I think, as you know, is depending on where you connect to that water line, there is a huge cost difference. And so the understanding that we have is if we connect on the Laconia side of the fire hydrant located in front of the police department, that would be the best option for the fire department to
It'd be the
connect.
cheapest option.
But it would require, obviously, getting to that point across the front of the,
So you're suggesting to have your building, the district's building, connect to the supply line to the PD?
or out there on the main line at some point.
Right,
Past where we connect.
right.
Yeah.
The supply line that happens to be out on Sanborn Road,
Main line.
the main line. If they go one further, they end up paying the matrix, which belongs to Nickerson.
Yes.
So, we're trying to come up with an affordable, the most affordable
Mhm.
solution. And
It's my money too, so I'm all about.
right,
You
it's
know.
all of our money.
I wouldn't object. As long as it doesn't affect water flow to the
I was just going to
PD.
say, as long as it doesn't affect the water flow, I don't have any objections to it.
Okay, perfect.
Have
Thank
you talked with the water company?
We have not.
That might be a good place to start.
Well, we have sometimes some issues right now that we're dealing with
You know,
outside
fire
of this.
hydrants.
I was
but
gonna say.
You guys got to be professional and just move on.
And just a brief update on that, we do have a court date set in January.
Oh, okay.
They've given us they expect it to be a one-day event, and they've given us a 2-week time period that will happen.
Could you
So-
supply us with the date of that court date when you get it?
Certainly can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So board, that's a consensus, yes?
I'm a yes.
Yep, okay,
Yeah,
yes,
Yes.
as
that
long
is.
as it doesn't affect,
As long as it doesn't affect the water flow for the
Yeah.
PD.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Would the conveyance be, um, this has come up as you probably, would it be a lease or would the fire district take ownership of the parcel that we've been discussing?
They would be ownership of the parcel.
We'd have to subdivide it off.
Right.
Okay, that was the consensus, obviously for future liability.
Hold on a
and-
second.
Hold
I
on a
have
minute.
question. Maybe you can answer that either. Can we convey that thing to anybody else?
Well,
We can only use it for municipal purposes.
Yeah, yes, you have the right to do that per what.
Okay.
But I thought that there was a different discussion. Tim could speak to that.
Well, there were different options that the board considered when you asked for an analysis from me. One of the options was to lease it, long-term, low cost, like $1 for so many years um, arrangement. So that if for instance there ever was a division of the assets of the fire district between the two towns, as was discussed in 14, that the town would already have that portion of the asset at our cost,
Interesting.
not at a
Mhm.
2050 value.
How long a lease?
Wasn't the number, didn't we put 50 years on it that first time? I can't.
I'd have to go back and look at, I'm pretty sure the board had selected one of the options that I had
Yeah.
recommended or had presented to, but
Well, we
I
didn't,
don't recall off the top of my head.
I don't recall, no, I recall discussing it, but I don't recall selecting it because we talked about it and then we said it wouldn't go with the swap. Because we're swapping a building and a demolition of a building with asphalting, and then it wouldn't go in with that. They
Actually-
did not, Paul Ogier absolutely did not want to lease it.
Right, but so if you're looking at equity, I mean, if you look at the value of the land over there at exit 20 on Sanborn Road, it's probably twice as much an acre as the value of the property on Center Street.
Do we know that for sure?
We
Well,
have
that's
those numbers.
Yeah.
that's a non-conforming lot.
Do we
So
have,
once the building comes down, you can't build on it. So now it's just a piece of, it's just going to become part of the parking lot once that building is removed,
mhm,
unless you build exactly in the footprint, which we're not going to do.
right,
So Tim makes a very good point, Tim Pearson.
mhm.
So I would reconsider that
Well, I did
sale.
provide you those values at the time, based on at the time you were making those decisions.
The only other point that I would add, as a Tilton resident, to me, it doesn't matter who owns the property, but it came up that if there was any future liability on the property because of any actions of the fire district, then that should be borne by the fire district, not just the town of Tilton.
Mhm.
And that would be insurance, additional insured and all that kind of thing.
But what if we contaminated the site?
We'd have to write that into the lease agreement, wouldn't we?
Correct.
So that was our concern.
Jeannie,
I
you
think
had
the
something
legal
to
folks
say?
Need to figure
No,
out the
okay.
best solution there.
Well, perhaps we should I'm sorry.
Sure.
You need to speak into a mic.
Sure. I think the feeling of the building committee was that if the district did not own the property, they were not likely to support spending millions of dollars to put a fire station on a piece of property that they weren't going to own.
It Tilton owns.
Correct.
And I can't blame them a single little bit.
Well, I guess it depends on how the lease is written.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think I would vote for that. I'm from Tilton.
Well, it depends on how the lease was written. If it was written with an option to renew for another 50 years, as long as the district was intact, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't I? The fire district, by and large, has shot down how many proposals for fire stations?
More than the police
Yeah,
station.
what?
More
We're
than the
almost 30
police
years
station,
now?
even. Getting both sides to come together with a solution that works for both, especially when I keep hearing Park Street, Park Street, Park Street, and I get it. I really do, but I truly believe we need something over here on this side of town. Why just not sell them the property? Why would we keep it?
I think for the same reasons Tim spoke of, or Tim Pearson spoke of, we had two Tims here. Because remember how many times have we had um, petition warrant articles come to dissolve the district?
Yeah, and none of them came close.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
Chief just said somebody online wants to comment. I don't know if you want.
But not yet.
Okay.
We'll take your
Yep.
comments in a minute. Thank you.
I mean, we're agreeing to agree on something, but whether we lease
We're,
or sale, does it have to be decided tonight?
well, we're not agreeing to agree on something. What we're doing is changing what we agreed on already. That's what we're doing.
Or did we?
Oh, no, we did.
I don't remember what we,
Well, you weren't here.
yes, I was.
No,
It was January.
no, because Eric was here.
Either way,
Eric was here.
No, I was here when they came to talk about,
I think Eric was out there for the fire commission.
it was like the first meeting. It was like,
And we-
whoa, go
And we can pull up the minutes to see.
talk
Yeah.
therapy.
Pat? May
Go ahead, change it again. Go ahead.
I?
Come on, put in your 2 cents. 5 cents now, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you do pay me to think, but
I know,
one thing
you're
I was
right.
thinking was if you didn't want to lease it, that in the purchase and sale or in some type of deed, you could put something in there, should the district ever be dissolved, that this is the value of the land that the building was built on that would retain, that Tilton would retain. So there's other ways to accomplish that.
Like I said, we don't have to decide tonight.
That's perfect.
Well, I'm a seller.
That works, Tim.
Myself.
Thank you.
That was worth 6 cents.
Thank you.
I mean, we don't have John, so.
No.
Yeah.
Inflation
No, we
makes it
can't
Okay.
make a decision on something like that.
Do you have any other questions for us going forward, or then I'm going to open it to the public?
No, I'm fine. I'm good.
You, okay, so water, yes, and this, you kind of got a grip on it, okay. We have some public that would like to weigh in on this.
Hi, this is Nathan Langione. Can you hear me?
No, barely.
Hello?
Okay, we
There
can
you
hear
go.
you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, so I was wondering if the selectmen have the ability to sell property. Do they not have the ability to swap property without a warrant article? I just
I believe it's the transfer of deeds that we have the authority to do. And to decide on the amount of money that we're going to get or the compensation which we're going to get for said property. We get houses through tax liens, and there's a certain formula for how much money we get back. If it sells for 100,000, we don't get 100,000. We only get the amount of money that we're owed in taxes.
That's a different law.
Right, years ago.
We sell the property. That we can
that's a
decide to
different law.
sell the property.
Right, yeah, what you're talking about is a different law. But Nate, the question that you're asking, years ago, taxpayers, residents of the town of Tilton, the legislative body, passed the law that allows the selectmen to buy, sell, or lease property. So yes,
okay.
right.
So potentially the selectmen could sell the property without a vote. Not that I'm suggesting that be done, just clarifying the powers, I guess.
Yes, we could.
Yes, we could. We would not. We'd want to bring it to the legislative body, only because of the circumstances within two towns and so on and so forth. And in a village district, the fire district, it's a different district. So, yeah, we would probably bring that forth to the legislative body.
Well, also certain promises were made as we developed that property
Right,
to the taxpayers, to the legislative body.
right,
Statements were made. I don't know about promises.
right. So it's a hard one to answer, Nate, but you're absolutely correct. We have the ability to do that. Would we? We can certainly have conversations in front of the fire district and say, yes, this is what we offer. This is what we will offer. You can go and we can create documents that will go to the warrants, whatever, to the town meeting. And then if they're passed, we'll stand by them. But we still have the ability to do that. But would
Well,
we? Would want the taxpayer, would want the legislative body to vote on it.
totally understandable. That being said, as far as selling versus leasing, you could add a contingency such as right to first refusal if the district were to sell it in the future. And as far as if the district were to be dissolved, the assets would have to be divided between the towns that make up the district. So as far as future value of the property, I don't view that as being completely lost if it were to be sold to the district. Because if it were to be dissolved at some point when there are two stations, it would be likely that something would be worked out where each town got the station that was in their town for obvious reasons.
Right. I don't know if you were here a little bit earlier, but there are restrictions on that piece of land.
Yes,
So,
I am
okay,
aware of the
okay,
restriction as well as uh, Center Street. So they're both valuable properties, but
they can't be
only
resold to a private party with, they're restrictive in that respect. It's the municipality or in this case, fire district.
yeah, it's one of those
Okay,
things. It's
right,
hard to sell and hard to quantify actual value.
correct, right.
Thank you
Okay,
for the questions and your time.
okay, doke. Good questions. Okay, anybody else? And Tim, you have any other questions?
My only other question was, is there anything else that the fire district should be looking towards, working towards, or providing for you?
Um, I don't think so, but we could probably try to come up with some type of language. Jeannie, what do you think? To see, a kind of a prototype of what it would look like.
The agreement.
Could the agreement, what,
For
if
lease
you,
and for sale?
what's that?
For both lease and or sale?
Correct. I would say for both lease and or sale, swap. Could you and Tim
Yeah,
kind of come up with that? Yeah.
yeah.
And that would, like a draft, that would probably be helpful for the facility meeting or something a little bit better.
That'd
And
be
then
great.
you could also, whatever we can be helpful in, obviously we're going to help because it's going to benefit the town a great deal.
Appreciate that. And
In,
if you'd like one of us to come and give you an update, we'd be happy to do that at
right.
any of your meetings.
And I always thought that maybe if you needed the selectmen to attend a facility meeting, that perhaps maybe we could do that.
Sure.
Okay,
I've
thank
been
You
to
know,
lots of them. I love the facilities meetings.
so I mean that's where probably you could get your answers.
Yep.
if they have answers, and then they all hear them at the same time. And then you could get your answers.
Chief, have I left anything else? I don't think so. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions, I'm satisfied.
Well,
Thank you very
that's
much.
good. Good questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Good questions.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a
Good
good
night. Good night, Chief.
Hi, Nathan Langione again. I would just like to comment that I think having something in writing would be very valuable as far as clarification and getting everyone on the same page. So I am very much in agreement with that. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome, Nate.
Well,
We're going to try to get a draft. Nate's on the
right,
facility
is it
meeting.
understood that they can't be signed
Right.
until is actually
It,
Yeah.
yeah,
swapped?
just understand that it's a draft. It's just a,
Points of clarification,
Right.
basically.
yeah. Just to
Yes,
kind of help you guide through it.
yeah, because I think there's a little bit of telephone and not everyone has the same understanding of the potential agreement.
How does that happen?
That's why I think it would be important to the selectmen to come to one of your facility meetings if you don't have it on a Thursday night.
Yes, we do not have them on Thursdays, and I will bring that up at the next meeting to see if that's what the committee would like to do at this time. On an unrelated note, where in town am I allowed to open a porn factory?
Oh, boy.
In the industrial park, I believe.
Open a what? I didn't
Well,
hear.
what you mentioned possibly going, that couldn't go on that property.
A what?
The second thing you mentioned.
Porn shop.
A porn shop.
I
Oh.
believe only the industrial.
Correct, because everything else is zoned non-adult.
I think only the industrial.
Only industrial park, Catherine is saying. I'll have to look at the zoning, and I don't have that in front of me. So that would probably be, Catherine is saying, only the industrial park.
Can't have a strip club.
In the industrial park, you can.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's the only
Think
place
so.
it's allowed on the
I know
Charter
somebody
perm-
who looked.
chart of permitted uses.
Okay, I don't think that's
Yeah, I think-
that's that big a thing right now.
Nate, we'll get back to you on that.
Catherine will get it in her selectmen's
I know, it's
report
in-
next meeting.
It's
Thank you
interesting.
very much.
I appreciate it, but that's a good question. We'll get back, we'll get you before next meeting.
One of the first things I think I looked up when I went on the planning board.
Really?
Yeah, just out of
That's
curiosity.
interesting.
'Cause
Didn't
I
know
didn't
that
want
about
one
you.
in town.
I don't think
Okay.
that's in keeping with the rural aspects of Tilton.
All right, moving right along here. While Catherine looks that up. Selectmen's reports. Joe, you're up.
Last night there was a meeting of the Water Commission in Lockmere, the Lockmere Village District. The budget is complete. I signed it this morning. So you'll be getting that in the budget committee here in virtually any time, because Paul, I think, was going to bring it down today.
Oh, nice.
Drop the
they-
mic on that one.
Did they happen to find somebody to fill the vacancy on the budget committee?
No. I've been asking around. It's got to be somebody from the district. And
Yes.
every time I meet somebody from the district, I ask them, would you like to be on the budget committee? We need, and I'd explain it. And invariably they go, no, thanks though.
You could put a little notice in your bills when
We
you send them
do.
out.
We do every billing.
Huh.
Every single billing. It's not that they don't know we need somebody or that we're due somebody. And that I can't, I've stated
You can't
a
do it.
number of times that I am not eligible due to being a selectman.
Okay. That it? Oh, wonderful.
That's it. That's my
Thank
whole
you.
thing.
Catherine.
Oh, I take it
Oh,
back.
on.
And the best part of it is there will be no rate increase for the Lockmere Village District. It will remain the same.
Very nice. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's still parking on the sidewalk being taken place by the Civil War Monument. Would you mind letting the PD know?
So what, I'm sorry.
The PD was notified today.
Oh, they were.
I got a couple of phone calls on that today.
Yeah, so did I.
Yep.
I have basically through the week, and then I've seen it myself.
Where
The sidewalk along
Winter Street.
Civil War Monument, Winter Street.
On the
Winter
Winter
Street?
Street side,
There's cars parked on the
on the sidewalk.
sidewalk of the park
Oh.
side. And I mean, they're completely blocking it. I worry because I've noticed it in the afternoon when the kids are walking back from school.
Mm.
That concerns me.
They have to go around the vehicle.
And I'm wondering how the bids for the island embankment, have we gotten any?
But I haven't solicited any. I have a meeting with HEB next week. And they're gonna look.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we're moving along. And then the only other thing is, so last night, the budget committee, now the week before, they didn't have a quorum, so they couldn't meet. And then last night, we didn't have a quorum until about 7:15, and one of our members called in, so we ended up with 4. But I got to thinking about it because the budget committee doesn't have alternates, and I don't think they can because they're elected. However, I did look up land use, for example, and I think didn't we just swear in an alternate?
Mm-hmm.
So those alternates, and it is suggested that they attend meetings, regular meetings.
Mm-hmm.
They can participate. They can sit at the table. They can participate like a
Mhm.
regular member. They just can't make a motion. They can't second a motion. They can't vote, and they can't deliberate, which simply means after the planning board has discussed, asked their questions, gone through the public, and now they're going to create their motion, then that person couldn't deliberate. But I really think our alternates need to attend those meetings because a lot of times those boards have no clue that a member isn't going to show up.
Right. Well, when we interviewed the last one, Joe specifically asked
That's right.
it, so that person never showed up.
I don't know. I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
saying if we could send
Oh,
a
that would
notice
be
out to those
disappointing.
alternates or to the chairs of those boards and let them know that those alternates, they don't just need to sit in the audience
Right.
waiting. They can actually participate. They can ask questions of the applicant, et cetera,
Mhm.
as I
Right.
said. That, I mean, and what you have is you have an alternate that's actually learning how to be a planning board member by participating.
Yep.
That's
And
how
I
I
think
learned.
that's important, especially with zoning board.
Right. Right. Right.
So I think if we could notify, like I said, the boards, at least those 2 boards that, they could do that. And those alternates should be notified that they should be attending those meetings.
Yep.
I think that's very important. And that information that I just relayed is available on the, I can never remember the name of it, the state site. It used to be Economic Development, but now it's,
BEA.
yeah, yes, in their handbook that they publish for land use.
Oh, okay.
Just quick,
Can we get a copy of that?
yeah, I think you asked before, actually.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to go back to what Catherine, the one meeting I have with HEB to look at the island for the erosion. If anyone wants to go to that, I'll send out an email and let you know when it is. I feel like it's next Tuesday or Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. But I don't know what kind of interest there is from the board. If there is interest and that doesn't work, I can move the date to some other time. Don't know how involved you want to be in the meetings.
Yeah, send out an email.
Yeah, you
I
can
could go on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'll be around.
Okay.
I have some time mid-morning on Tuesdays in general.
Okay.
Yeah, me too, depending on the week. Anything else?
Well, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Scott?
Just a reminder for folks that the Parks is running the Scarecrow competition again this year. So I know that the flyer is up on the town website, and it's been posted on various different social media sites, or the town social media sites. But fun competition for homes and businesses alike to get in the Scarecrow competition. And that's all I have for this week.
Thank you. Okay, so we've put the recycle center ribbon cutting is postponed to later in the month. And Halloween will be on Saturday, October 28th, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's townwide trick or treat will be on Tuesday, October 31st. As a reminder, I have a proposal to bring forth to the board. It's just an idea. I think that given our communications that we had with like the planning board a couple of weeks ago that I think went very well, I wanted to suggest that we have a meeting with the chairs of the different boards and try to acquiesce if we can help in any way, whether it be with better communications, offer them training. There's a lot of new people on zoning and planning, for instance. I don't know about budget, but offer them training. A lot of people don't know that there's training out there for them. And maybe just ask them if we can help in any way. Just open that communication up.
It's a grand idea.
I think it's a great idea, but I think we should invite the whole board, all the board members.
All the boards. You
Board
mean
members.
board members and everything?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm good with that. And just have one night, let's say 45 minutes, and just open it up and this is what we're doing, and it can be an off night and just have that if you want. I don't care, it doesn't matter, but I think that that's important to reach out because they're volunteers. A lot of them are word of mouth, and they get out there and they say, well, geez, I'd like a lot of people. Well, we've had 3 or 4 of them that have just moved into town and said, I'd like to serve on a committee. And I'd like to be the one that offers them the help that they need to get the training that they need.
I agree, and they may not know the resources available to them out there, like New Hampshire Municipal.
Right.
Judy could say it. I don't remember.
Right.
But I think that's a great idea.
Okay. So can we set that up? Okay.
Question.
Yep.
Planning, zoning, and Concom or other boards?
All of them. Planning, zoning, Concom, budget, parks.
Not all in one night.
Yeah. I mean,
A giant cattle call, that won't go well, I don't think.
But not necessarily all of them are going to come.
I don't think
But
they're
we
all going to
extend it-
come, but we
no, we
extend it
extend the
out there.
invitation.
At
so
least the
all
chairs can
boards,
come.
committees, and commissions. Just open it up. Okay.
Yep.
Just open it up and at least the chairs will come, hopefully. Not all the people might not have that time off that evening, or they may even be meeting that evening. Some of them
Right.
meet at odd times, but maybe the chairs will just come and we'll open it up.
Okay. Can I go
Yep.
back a minute? You, on the Halloween that we're, the town's having on the 28th, I have been talking with Deidre, who is in charge of the trunk or treat event, and she sent me a flyer. She felt the time would best be 3 to 5:30. Typically, when you have your parade, it lasts for an hour, and their trunk or treat is longer. And she felt that 7 o'clock was too long, so she was suggesting 5:30.
I'm all about having it earlier. By the end of the night, it's too cold and the sun has gone down, and invariably it's windy downtown. I've been doing it for years, and the last part of it always is not as fun as the first part. Except for the year we did the zombie walk. I liked the zombie walk.
And the island would be perfect with the long grass over there for the zombie walk.
So
I-
what she had in the flyer, which is not finalized, but it's
Right.
pretty cool.
Well, that is
Right,
Um,
it is cool.
beautiful.
She's got 3 to 5:30 that the trunk or treat would start at 3 and go till 5:30, and the costume parade, which typically starts a half hour after the trunk or treat. That's the way it's been done in the past. So the trunk or treat or the costume parade would start at 3:30.
We just need to, well, I don't have a problem with that because we got to coordinate it because the cars will be leaving and children will be walking in that area where it's closed off. So
Well, they wouldn't be leaving because if the cars will all be in place.
right, but
three.
if we made it till 7 and they made it till 5:30, then the cars would be leaving.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So we either need to make it at 5:30 or, whatever. But I don't really, it doesn't matter to me. I think Joe's right. Whenever the time was, it was 8 o'clock from that last hour, it kind of just, we were walking and it was pretty cold and
And most everybody was home anyway
Mhm.
by that time.
It'll be dark too.
it'll be
Yeah.
dark. So do you want to change it to 3 to 5:30 or
All right.
that's 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
Get it done?
It's good. Yeah. Get the kids home for dinner, etc.
They'll have candy for dinner. Don't you remember those days?
Yes, but I don't have to worry about that anymore. Thank heavens.
So are we all in favor, 3 to 5:30?
Yes.
Okay, great suggestion. Okay, that's consensus. Okay, we're all set with that, Jeannie?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I wanted to put a shout out to the Public Works staff. Thank them for changing their hours and working the all-nighters so that we could get the asphalt done in beautiful sidewalk out there. It's really looks nice. So a big shout out to them. Senior Center generator, we don't have an electrician, and I'm trying to coordinate. Kevin said that he was able to look at the specs and find an area where it has to go according to the specs and build the cement pad that it needs to go on. So we can do that, but can you contact JP Carter and see if he can coordinate it with Kevin to do a transfer switch when the pad is built? And then Chris will go up and do the gas. And the other question I have is there any information out there that Comcast is coming to Tilton? I know that was a little over, more than a year ago that we signed something that said that they can come to on the
Yeah.
pole.
They were delayed, but I believe the last interaction or the last conversation that I had with, can't think of his name right now, that they had started the process.
I saw during the summer, because I have a little more free time during the summer when I was around, that there were some of their minivans, trucks around at the lines in town. So that would, to me, I know it's not
Lake
official.
Road had a new line strung,
Yeah, that would.
even as of yesterday.
They were around during the summer. I saw their vehicles. So
Okay, that sounds really nice. Wonderful. All right. I believe that I am finished.
I have one point.
Yep.
Sexually oriented businesses can only take place in the industrial park with a special exception.
Special exception.
Did you hear that, Nate?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Go.
Okay. Okay, the time being 6:40. Oh,
I was just going to say the person that we had on first, is not due to be here till 7 o'clock, but you do have a couple other non-public issues that you could talk about before then,
Mhm.
if you wanted to do that.
Yeah. Do you have a report? No?
I do, not formal, verbal.
Okay.
I do have some things to go over with you.
All right.
You want me to do that now?
Well, might as well in public, yes. We'll do that before we go into non-public.
So I just wanted to follow up with the board. I wasn't at the meeting. I believe you made a decision not to move forward with the McFarland Johnson proposal on Caleb Hill Road. And I wanted to confirm that because I heard that you had decided not to, or not at this time. And I do need to go back to the state, the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, because they're expecting to move forward. So I just needed clarification on what I'm supposed to tell the state.
Well, we voted to not go with the proposal that they made. They're welcome to make another proposal if they like. But basically, I had questions and I didn't have anybody that could answer the questions. It was just a contract, here you go. And it's like, yeah, what about? What about? However, what about? And there was nobody to answer those questions. So, I mean, maybe it's perfectly reasonable. I don't think we can do it for the amount of money that they're putting forward. Pure and simple. And somebody has pulled this number out from underneath their barn. uh, in any case, I think it stinks to high heaven. I don't believe it. So if they can come and show me it really won't cost any more than that, and all of our ditching concerns and culvert concerns, ledging concerns are taken care of.
So I think maybe two different issues there. One, the proposal, when we had the conversation with the New Hampshire DOT, we had met with 3 to 5, I think we met with 3. And we asked them all, what would it cost for you to give us an engineering study? And that was 2 years ago. And at that time, they told us to give you the engineering study that you're looking for, it's going to be $100,000. That was 2 years ago. We negotiated with the state of New Hampshire to say, we want to do this engineering study, but if it comes back with a number that we don't like, higher than what you have given us, we want the option of not moving forward, and we don't want to have to pay for the study. They agreed to that. Fast forward to 2 years later, the proposal that the board received stayed within that $100,000, that amount that the state agreed to 2 years ago. And I think that probably, and Tim, you were part of this, so, speak up if you feel like I'm misrepresenting something, but I think that they felt that number, 100,000 now, 2 years later, they can only give you so much in that engineering study to stay within that 100,000. If you want to go beyond that, then the town would have to pay for that, or we'd have to go back to the state and say, well, for what we want, and maybe that's what we do, what we want, McFarland Johnson is saying it's going to be 150,000, not 100,000, right? Because I think you feel like, based on the conversation that you had with McFarland Johnson, you weren't comfortable with that they were going to give you all the good information, that they weren't doing the necessary borings or the investigation that you would feel comfortable needed to be done to provide an engineering study that would give us a good cost estimate, right?
That's absolutely right.
Right.
So I think that I was just trying to understand, are we done with this? Are we, or is there something else you want me to do? Are we going back to McFarland Johnson and saying, well, what would it cost? Bring him in and say, these are the things we want you to do. And he says, okay, if you want me to do these additional things, it's going to cost you 150. And then we could go back to the state and say, well, new price, 2 years ago it was this, at this time it's this. So,
If they don't do borings and things like that, how can they tell what they're bidding on? They're gonna say it's a 3.12 million or something we're gonna get from the state, and they'll come back and say, yep, 3.1 million, $3 million even, under the number. But based on what? I want to make sure that if we're gonna spend all this money, um, disrupt the traffic, everything else. I know that the choices are poor. I understand that, but
well, you won't be spending any money. It's the state's giving you it, and
unless it goes over,
exactly. And if it goes over though, if they come back and say it's going to be 4 or 5 million, at that point, you as the board can say,
it's back
thanks,
on
but
the state,
right,
for sure.
right.
I
If
just don't
you
want to pay
want this, if you really want to get this over to us, and I think I talked to Counselor Kenny about it, and maybe somebody else here did too, I don't know. But, they may be willing to find that extra money. I don't know.
Well, in that case, I guess we proceed because we haven't got a lot of choice. There really isn't a lot of choices if
Oh,
we want to fix the road.
Well, the
right.
choice
Well,
is that the state fix the road.
yes,
Right.
yes.
It's their road.
They showed no interest in that.
Well, if we don't go through this project, they're not going to have a choice, are they?
I
I
would have
mean, the
said
problem.
that 5 years ago, Catherine. Matter of fact, 10 years ago, we were out there on that
Right,
road and
right.
talking to the state, and here we are having the same conversations now as we did then.
I mean, the problem is that, try not to be derogatory. The proposed engineering study that they want to do is based on a lot of assumptions. And when that gentleman came to our meeting, I pointed that out to him. And he didn't really satisfy any of that. We just, well, it is what it is.
And
So
he,
it seems obvious that this, what they proposed to do as an engineering study is based on what the state would want them to do. This is the information they want the state to provide. They've never even
The bare
contacted,
minimum.
right, they've never even contacted or suggested they would contact our public works director, who
Well,
probably knows more about that road than anybody in the state
yeah,
right now.
I just got to clarify on that. Kevin was at every single one of the meetings with, and you can verify
Right, but-
that. So I don't know what Kevin was saying that night,
The engineering study doesn't include him.
but it was part of the conversation, and they very much agreed that Kevin would be part of that.
Right. But it's not in here. And when asked, he was like,
No.
But they're using, we're not certain, and Catherine, in either Catherine or John or Joe, one of them, asked the question, what data are they using to come up with? And he didn't really clarify what kind of data that they were using. And so if you look at culverts and you look at drainage and you look at wetlands, what kind of data are they looking at? Are they looking at, 1959 or what kind of?
Right. And one of the due diligence items that they did as they were putting this proposal together was ask us what we had for
Mhm.
information. We had virtually nothing. And then they went back to the state, and the state had nothing, had no information. So again, I go back to, I think their hands are tied, or they're restricted by if they're supposed to hit $100,000 number to do an engineering study, this is all they can do with that amount of money. If the state is willing to give more, or if the town is willing to give more, to have a more fully developed engineering study, more borings, the things that you're looking for.
If we're going to take the road over, I don't want to take a road over unless it's a 20-year road.
I agree.
I really don't.
I
ahead,
think
Scott.
that, I mean, let's call a spade, that what we're worried about is gambling.
Sure.
We're worried about the gamble of taking the road. So, and, I think the question, and I think Jeannie's asking the question is, would the state be willing to gamble a little bit more of their money to satisfy what we would want for an engineering study? So
And-
there's two gambles at hand here.
And it really is not a gamble for them because all they're going to do is reduce that 3 point.
Correct. They're gonna
They're
drop
just going
that
to take
money
it from,
off of
which
that.
means there's going to be less money to fix the road, which honestly works in your favor because, if what you have left over is only 3 million because you've taken that much more to do the engineering study, then it's probably going to work in your favor. But at the end of the day, they want to get rid of a road.
Yeah.
And
They want rid of the road.
And Tim will tell you, as we've been talking with the people at New Hampshire DOT, they've really been very amenable to giving us what we want, which,
I wonder why.
yeah.
Well, I'm in favor of going back, but I'm very cautious about what we receive. So I'm amenable to you folks going back.
So I could send an email to Brian and I could say, based on the conversation that you had with the board, you could see they were very uncomfortable with the lack of information. What would it cost to give them all they're looking for to do that engineering study, and see what he says?
Could we, and I hate throwing a little bit of work on you, but this may go to McFarland Johnson, because when in section B, basic scope of service, number 1, it says the project consists of developing an engineering study in accordance with NHDOT's New Hampshire Department of Transportation process for municipally managed state highway aid program projects. So my question would be, can we see that? I mean, I'm sure it's accessible. I'm just saying, I mean, even if there's a digital copy or a link that we can just go to take a look at.
All my questions.
Yeah, to take a look at, what this, in accordance with what the DOT's, process for municipally managed state highway aid program projects is.
I have that somewhere.
It's right on the front page of the August 14th letter from McFarland Johnson. It's right on the bottom, basic B1.
Yep.
So that may be able to sort of clarify for all of us, I think, sort of what the scope would be, or, because to me, that sounds like the money that we've been.
You're talking about attachment B.
Yeah. No, it's on the front of the letter.
Design environmental analysis procedures for municipally managed state highway and program projects. I printed it out because I had the same question you did.
Yeah.
What
So
the heck?
So you already have it?
I believe so.
does that surprise us? I don't think it does. I just.
It doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me in the least.
Well,
So, but just,
great minds think alike.
well, as we've talked about, I think that, and Pat articulated it just a couple of minutes ago, is that we would really like to, if we're going to take over the road, we want a road that is set up to be to have the regular, so I'm going to say regular maintenance done to it, not a complete revamp. And as she said, a 20-year road, but that may not be exactly what the state is doing. And to me, what it looks like is that this money that's potentially allocated to us goes under the scope of this, municipally managed state highway aid program projects. So, which may then answer our questions, Joe's questions about exactly what they are looking at in terms of what's appropriate work.
Right.
So
I can also.
So yes, do you want her to go back? You want Jeannie to go back?
She can go
Yeah.
back and say what the heck.
Okay.
I mean, there's also hidden costs in here. If you notice, it requires us to hire someone to do the inspections while the construction is in process. The municipality.
Well, that's where Kevin would come in.
If he's qualified.
I believe that is if we go forward with
Correct.
the project.
Right.
But that's
So
an-
that
I mean, that
cost,
comes out of that
Oh, okay.
It
So
does.
that's
Construction
like a
costs.
so that's like the
manager.
Clerk of the
manager,
works.
clerk of the works.
something like that.
And that comes out of the road construction
Right.
costs.
Got it.
keeps getting smaller
Right.
and smaller, and that road is deplorable.
So I'll go back to Brian and ask him the question. Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's where Senna comes in, right up there.
Okay.
He was on the last one we did.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, what a
Yeah.
value.
That's a value. Okay,
It is 7:00.
okay.
I can go down.
So,
Um,
all right, John and Nate, we're gonna go into non-public. The time being 7 PM. I make a motion to move into non-public per RSA 91A:3, 2A, the dismissal, promotion, compensation of a public employee, or disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her unless the employee affected, one, has the right to a public meeting, two, request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. Do I hear Catherine seconded? Roll call vote?
Jessamine, yes.
Ruggles, yes.
Dawson, yes.
Constantino, yes.
This conference will now be recorded.
Man, this room is hot.
The blinds need to come up a little bit so the breeze can come in. Okay, I make a motion to seal the minutes of the October 5th, 2023, because disclosure would adversely affect the reputation of a person other than a member of the board permanently.
Ruggles, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. New business, Jeannie?
Okay. So the next item that I wanted to talk to the board about is Tony Belanger of Pinard Waste drafted an assignment and assumption of contract and has asked the board to sign it. A copy of that assignment and assumption of contract is in your binder, as well as a copy of the current contract with Pinard Waste. And Tim's looked at it. He says it's pretty standard. So I didn't know if the board wanted to look at it before the next meeting and agree to sign it, or if you're ready.
I'm thinking John might want to do this because
100%.
look at it. John has history with Casella, and he's gonna want to make sure. I just have a suspicion.
Where is it in our binder?
I don't think that's a
It would
suspicion.
be under review. I think it's probably, did everyone else find it?
No.
Really?
Where is it?
It should be. Somebody copies and asked Sue.
It's under for review, I believe. It's for review.
Yep,
It's the
under
for
review.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very simple. I've already read it.
Yes, I saw this.
It's just the first page, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the top page, Catherine.
I got
The
it.
rest is the Casella.
Yeah, I'd like to review the contract before I sign it.
The contract is the Pinard contract.
That we have right now.
But this is asking us to assign that to Casella,
That's right.
right?
Right, but we're not changing the Pinard contract.
It isn't
Maybe,
about changing the contract.
maybe. I'd still like to read what I'm assigning over.
Got
And I think we
Sure.
should wait for John, because
John's gonna have issue,
he's gonna want to weigh in on that one.
I think.
Okay.
He's gonna want to look at it anyway.
Is this something that is this time?
I didn't get that sense from Tony
It-
that it was time sensitive.
Okay, got it.
Next item. Tony also wanted to know if the board would consent to allow Pinard Waste to enter Morrison Avenue at the east side entrance and change the sign so it says entrance for town authorized vehicles only. He says this would make it easier for them to collect the trash, because right now, he says they are going in there and they shouldn't be going in there, but that's the easiest way for them to pick up the trash. Otherwise, if they go the other way, you're going to have to make those people move their trash cans to the other
Across the
side.
street.
Yeah.
So if it's technically town authorized vehicles, we've authorized them to pick up the garbage, so wouldn't it qualify as a town authorized vehicle
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
in a sense?
Right, but it
Yeah.
was the
But
chief,
I-
if I remember correctly, that came to us to ask for us to make those, you know, no entrance and
Mhm.
one way only, et cetera,
Right. So
because of safety reasons.
it said it
So
would,
if we allow them to come through when we've been told it's not safe, should we have the chief weigh in on this? And it's kind of disturbing to know that they are ignoring our street signs.
I think,
They're upfront about it, Catherine. They're not sneaking around behind our back.
and Tony is aware of it, and he said, if you don't, that's fine. We'll just come down the other way and everybody will have to bring their trash cans to the other
The other
side.
side of
And
the
that's
street.
going to be an issue because there's people on that road that are not going to allow the trash to go on that side of the road. We already know there's issues with that.
But so I don't understand that. There's residents
Let that issue move.
on both sides of the
Yeah,
road.
Further
but
up.
the
Oh,
woman still
yeah.
owns.
So whichever way they come in, they're picking up trash on both sides of the road, are they not?
No, it's only on the right side that they can pick it up.
That's right. That's correct.
Mm.
If they're going to pick up on both sides of Morrison Avenue, they're going to have to go down, turn around, and come back.
Back up.
And
Right.
back
Because the
up.
arm's
Yeah.
only on one side.
Correct.
Right, but that's what I mean. So no matter which way they come in, they're gonna have to do that, are they not?
You bet. As far as I know.
So I don't get it.
Well, I think it was if they go down the one side, they could go to the end, turn around, and come back.
Around and yeah.
The way that it is now, they come in this way.
And they got to
Which-
go up.
Yeah,
There's
gotta
no way
go.
for them to turn around when they go the opposite direction.
right.
Yeah, because if they enter from that east end, the end closest to Planet Honda, they can pick up, and then there's the ability to turn around, if I'm not mistaken, in that parking lot at the west end.
The
Oh, is that
welder.
what they're
Yes.
doing?
Avenue.
The
So
welder.
that makes it easier for,
Right.
well, yeah, it's the pet and
So if they come and
KRM or
enter in the
whatever it
east
is.
Whatever
end,
it
turn
is
around and then go
this
up.
week.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I'm okay with that. I would get with the chief and ask him if that's a safe way to do it. And if the chief says, yeah, I'm okay with that. Anybody else?
I'm fine
If
if it's
you
gonna.
add a talk to the people on the street component,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
let them know that this is being proposed.
John can do that.
Yeah, John will
I
have,
wouldn't want to have to drag my garbage across the street.
we have an issue on Maple Court right now with somebody dragging it on the opposite side of the street and they're fighting over whose property it is. Down right at the very beginning on the corner of
Yeah.
Cedar and
Oh,
Zotzo Place. It's horrible.
Okay,
It's
what's
ownership.
next?
Yeah, Jeannie's got more.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the chief to weigh in on this, and if he's okay with it, then I guess we would need to get a new sign made.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
All right. Next item was the administrative assistant and secretary job descriptions. I'd given those to you before. I don't know if you still have them in your binders, or I made copies in case you needed them, but I'm not asking you to do it tonight, but we do need to,
Are we out of non-public session?
We
yes.
are out of non.
Yes.
Because it says we're in non-public session.
the Board of Selectmen are currently in a non-public session. It does say that.
Does that mean that?
We're in public session. It's
Okay,
recording. It's
all right.
Because that's
I'll
wrong.
see if I can get that. cute
No,
little
no,
sign.
as long as it's
Tim's assistant.
not blank or
Tim's
whatever.
assistant will take a look.
If you can email that to me, I would prefer an email because
Does anyone want a hard copy?
I have a hard copy. I have mine already.
Email's fine.
Okay. Scott, do you
Yes.
need a hard copy?
No, I already have.
Mine's already marked up.
All right.
Oh, one thing I would like to state is that I noticed tonight that the minutes were like one-sided. They weren't two-sided. So there wasn't really 8 or 9 pages. It was 4 or 5 pages, but backside were blank.
Yeah, that was,
And I hate it when that happens.
that was Sue. I just need to correct her on that.
Just
They had
throwing
ours.
it out there.
Yep. I noticed that too. But I wasn't gonna make her
Mhm.
do it over.
Right. Oh, now we have 2 messages.
I put in a message up. We're now out of non-public section.
Oh,
That's
great.
right. There we go.
Tim's assistant is doing.
Just in case there's any question about,
Okay, so I will email the administrative assistant secretary job descriptions again. And maybe at the next meeting, we can let me know if we need to make any changes so we can get those
Mm-hmm.
resolved and get them done.
Yep.
All right. We already talked about Halloween. So I got an email from Lakes Region Planning Commission asking for confirmation that the town wants the Main Street projects removed from the 10-year highway plan. And he provided a bunch of backup. He says, I'm told there was a discussion at the 10-year plan hearing with Executive Counselor Kenny, and that the select board never applied for and does not want the School Street intersection project where there was recently a fatality. New Hampshire DOT would be more than happy to remove this project from the 10-year plan, but the town may want to reconsider based on the information I'm providing you in this email. So there were a letter of support signed by 4 of the selectmen. So I wasn't at that meeting, the 10-year highway plan. This project is more than just a suggestion. I know because I saw some of the information about the roundabout. It's about this project in the 10-year highway plan. It starts down at Tanger Outlets and the two, and then comes up this way, and you know where you have the two, like at Tanger.
The zipper merges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of a large, it's like a 3-phase project that had been proposed back when Dari was still the town planner. And that's where it started, and that's when the board, and I don't know if you were still here, if you had left, but that's what went into the 10-year highway plan. So it's more than just a roundabout. Roundabout, if you don't like it, doesn't, just because it's in there doesn't mean it has to happen.
that's the only thing we said no to.
Correct.
But what he's saying to me is what he was told. And that's why I'm bringing it back to you, is because what he
By
was told
who?
by the DOT who was there apparently at the meeting. I wasn't there.
What was
How
he
could
told?
they possibly
That
have
you wanted it
confused
out of the
that?
10-year highway.
We
plan.
didn't want the intersection taken out of the 10-year plan.
No,
We just felt the roundabout wasn't the solution. And
correct.
several people at that meeting suggested better signage,
Most people
road
had a,
markings.
You're so far down, you're so
Yeah.
far off before you're ever gonna, it took us 20 years
It
to
was
get
not the Board of Selectmen anyway. It was a couple of residents that said that there was one resident, I can see it on the left-hand side, that said, I think we should just take it out. But it didn't mean anything because it was just one resident. But the Board of Selectmen did not say
Okay.
we wanted it taken out. I think they heard it from maybe a resident.
No, correct. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. And we've all said it. Our point is we did not want a roundabout here.
Right.
That's what we emphasized.
That's
That was
correct.
the statistics and numbers that
Yep.
I brought up at the meeting as
That's
well.
right.
So that becomes their interpretation of it. Which I'm going to keep.
how
I'm
could
going to
they
keep my
get
mouth shut
that interpretation?
because they.
You were very specific. We
Very.
don't want a roundabout out there. Guy says, okay, we'll take that right off the 10-year plan.
Yeah.
You want to know? You want to know how they? You want to know how they can do that, Joe?
How?
Because they look at the dollar signs. They take the whole thing out. They don't. They can put that
Right,
money
right.
somewhere else.
Yeah,
so
but
So-
that guy.
So we
like
do
see him
recognize that that something has to be done to make the intersection safer. A roundabout is not the solution.
So
100%.
I will just respond back to him and say that the board did not take any formal vote to remove this project from the 10-year highway plan. They do have concerns and objections to a roundabout. They think there might be better solutions.
At Main Street and School
Yep.
Street, because that was the first part of the discussion. It was outlined in their presentation. It was the roundabout at Main Street and School Street.
Yeah.
That was specifically in their presentation.
Correct.
All right,
Perfect, Jeannie.
all right, thanks. The next, and one more thing. Oh, okay. I received a call today from a business owner asking why the Sarnos are allowing the businesses that work in their building to park in spaces that are not theirs, which is taking spaces away from businesses who now can't park in Sarno's spaces. So apparently, what's happening is the businesses in the Sarno building are parking in other spaces that are not Sarno's, which is crowding out the people who now can't park in the Sarno's spaces. They can't, there's no space in the other spaces. So I think probably have to go back and talk to the chief about getting, those people need to have stickers and needs to be enforced.
They have a right to do that. Everybody in that building has a right to park in the municipal parking.
But
I-
didn't we have a voucher system?
We have a sticker system, right? They have to purchase a sticker. So everybody has to have a sticker.
So if they're
So
not
if they don't have a
non-stickered, we can
sticker,
ticket them.
it needs to be enforced.
Right.
Needs to be. So if they don't have a sticker, it needs to be enforced.
Were they 26? I don't remember.
$15. I don't think we went up on them.
I think you're talking about the number of spaces.
Say what?
We're talking about the number of spaces.
No, the amount of, for the placard.
$15.
The $15
It
stickers.
was.
It was. I don't think we've made it. I don't think we've made a motion to go up on it. They've been $15 for quite a while.
All right.
So
The cost of policing has increased.
so my understanding is that Sanos are leasing what's inside of his,
Oh, okay. They're
and
leasing it
so,
if they don't want to pay the lease now.
and
they're
if they
parking.
don't want to pay the lease, anybody, if they don't want to pay the lease, it's cheaper for them to get a municipal sticker. That's their, prerogative. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I do know we had an issue yesterday where R&D did park in Sano's area. When I went to check, there were other vehicles in Sano's area, not just R&D, but they were legitimate people that should be in Sano's area. So somebody's paying them.
So they just need to be stickered. That's it.
Correct.
Simple as that.
They need to come up with their own system and to let them know that they're in there or not. And we need to enforce
The placards.
Stickering.
our
placards.
stickering process. We need to make sure, we probably should be sending out a letter to the police department or the chief, probably the chief, and ask that we, if at all possible, I know we're understaffed, at all possible, to try to enforce the sticker policy for parking, particularly in that area.
And I would suggest during peak business hours.
Right,
So the
During-
daytime peak business hours, because
right. Because if they don't have a sticker, then they should get a ticket.
Okay. That's all I have.
Joe, do you have any new business?
I have just this one thing. Motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night,
And
everyone.
I'm sure John would be in favor of that were he here.
Ugh.
My grandchildren